everyone, and welcome to day 1 of chair-assisted pelvic floor strengthening for beginners. Today we will be focusing on some core foundational concepts of the pelvic floor in order to help you learn how to relax and lengthen your pelvic floor. So, I have my model with me here today. We are going to talk about the pelvic floor piston breath. So, our pelvic floor and our diaphragm work together like a piston. That means when one moves down, the other moves down, and when one moves up, the other moves up. This helps us maintain core control, intra-abdominal pressure, helps us sit, etc. It's a very important breathing technique for us to understand because it's almost a range of motion exercise for our pelvic floor. And without really understanding how to lengthen the pelvic floor, it's hard to strengthen the pelvic floor. So let's dive right into the mechanics of this breath. When we breathe in, our diaphragm has to move down in order for new air to enter into our lungs. So because of that piston breath, our pelvic floor also comes down when we breathe in. So when we breathe in, our pelvic floor lengthens and relaxes. I know that this sounds a little bit counterintuitive to a lot of people. However, the mechanics of it do work. With the breath in, I want you to picture the springs of a trampoline. The springs of the trampoline are in a circle and there's a net inside. When we breathe in, our pelvic floor drops just like the net of a trampoline would when we make contact with it and jump. On the opposite side of the spectrum, when we breathe out, our diaphragm has to come up to help us push that old air out of our lungs. And at the same time, because of that piston, our pelvic floor also comes up. So now I want you to picture that trampoline netting again, and you've lost contact with the trampoline. You're in the air and the net is now flat. That's what's happening on the exhale. So we are more focused today with the inhale, and we are going to practice inhaling and relaxing the pelvic floor through that breath in. We're going to do that in a few different ways. For today, you're going to need a band and a ball, but we're not going to get to those quite yet. Just have them at the side so that you're ready with them. So the first thing we're going to focus on is that breathing technique. I want you to sit nice and comfortable in your chair. Your back's going to be on the back of the chair and feet are resting comfortably on the floor. Now, we're going to cycle through a few cues to try and see which cue best relaxes your pelvic floor with the breath in. Don't worry if one of them doesn't feel like you're doing anything. Maybe some of the cues down the line will feel more effective to you. So, I want you, when you breathe in, to picture as if your pelvic floor is the petals of a flower. And when you breathe in, the pelvic floor opens and the petals of the flower open. So we're thinking about this motion. So sit back, relax, and try and do a few of those breaths. Good. We'll change the cue up for the folks that didn't like that cue very much. So this next cue that I want you to try and think about is I want you to pretend with your breath in that you're releasing the flow of urine. So picture as if your bladder is really full and on the breath in, you're letting yourself go to the washroom. So let's do a few here. And one more. Good. So I'll clarify a little bit to the folks watching what this is supposed to feel like. It's going to feel more subtle than you think it maybe should. You're not looking for an enormous drop of your pelvic floor. You're not looking for things to feel like we're moving by a foot. It's more a subtle opening and relaxation exercise more than anything else. So let's try one more cue to try and solidify this concept. I want you to pretend as if your hip bone on your right side is floating this way and your hip bone on your left is floating that way. So when you breathe in, you're thinking about widening the hip bones. And we're going to do one more there. You're thinking about this. Good. Okay. So now Pick the cue that you feel is the best opening cue for you, and we're going to try and keep this breathing up while we do the other exercises today. I personally like the flower cue the best, so that's what I'm going to keep repeating. But if you like a different cue, just replace that cue in your head with the one that worked better for you. So now let's integrate that breath into some specific movements. We're going to start by sitting up nice and tall in our chair, and we're going to do some pelvic tilting to start. So I want you to take a nice deep breath in while you tilt your pelvis backward. So you're rolling your hip bones backward like this. And then when you breathe out, you're going to come this way and tilt your pelvis this way. So let's do a few of these together. Breathe in, anterior tilt, and breathe out, posterior tilt. Good job. When you breathe in, think about lengthening that pelvic floor. Breathe out. Okay. And again, breathe in and out. We're going to go do 2 more of those together. So breathe in, lengthen through that pelvic floor, and out. Last one here, in and out. Good. Now we're going to do a bit of a similar movement pattern, but we're going to use our thoracic spine as well, or our shoulders and upper back. So we're going to curl forward, breathe out here, and then we're going to tilt everything back. Breathe in. Good. Let's do 5 in each direction. Breathe out, tilt everything, and then open up. Good. This should feel like a good warm-up for your spine. You should feel it in your pelvis. Good. Open up through there. And we're going to do 1 more in each direction. Good. And last one. Nice. And we're going to come back into the middle. Good job, everybody. Next, we're going to do another breathing technique to try and help us open up our rib cage and our abdominals in order to be nice and prepared to strengthen our pelvic floor. So you're going to take your hands and you're going to put them on either side of your rib cage. And you are going to pretend as if your entire rib cage is an umbrella and you're trying to open up that rib cage in all directions when you breathe in. We're going to have our hands here and we're going to try and breathe into that rib cage and expand it outward. So I'm going to put my hands here, breathe in and then out. Good. Now don't forget about that pelvic floor breath as well. So you're opening up and lengthening on that inhale. So in and out. And again. Good. 2 more here. Good. And last one. Nice job. So now we're going to grab our band and we're going to do a pretty similar breathing technique to what we just did, but it's going to help us practice not using our shoulders and really moving that rib cage as much as we can. We're going to take our band and we're going to place it around our backs, and then we're going to hold on to that band at the front, and we're going to try and breathe into the band to the side. It'll help with some feedback, and breathe into the band from the front, from the back as well. So we're going to hold on to our band and we're going to do 5 of these breaths here. Good. Think about that umbrella. Really do that 360. And relax those shoulders. Keep them down. Good work, everyone. 2 more. And last one. Good job. And we're going to take that guy and we're going to put it down. Okay. Next, let's open up and do a little bit of a stretch of our entire body. So we're going to take our hands, we're going to bring them up over our head, arch that back, fold your hands together, and then bring them down with your entire back bending, doing a nice sun salutation here. And then we're going to do 4 more of those. Head's going to follow the hands, coming up and down. Breathe in on the way up. Open up that pelvic floor and out. We're going to do 2 more here. And exhale on the way back down. And one last one. Good job, everybody. Now, since we've gotten our upper bodies a little bit relaxed, we're going to focus on our hips. You're going to sit in that chair a little further away from the back of it so that your back isn't quite touching it. And we're going to do some hip mobility here. So we're going to move our hips into 2 positions called internal rotation and external rotation. So I'm going to start by explaining it on my right leg. I'm going to do internal rotation and external rotation. And I know that that looks a little counterintuitive because with internal rotation, I'm moving my foot out. But it's just about where the femur is sitting in relation to the socket with the hip bone. So we don't really have to worry about that. I'm going to say foot out and foot in for this exercise. So we're going to start with doing 5 of them on the right, and then we're going to go and do 5 of them on the left. So let's start with that right side. And we're going to go foot out and come back. Again. Good. We want to feel a good stretch kind of deep in our hip socket with this stretch. And it'll come to a point where it just kind of simply stops and doesn't move further. And that's okay. Everyone has slightly different hip mobility. As far as you can go is wonderful. So that was our foot out. We're going to do 5 foot ins on this right side. So as you can see, we have a little bit more of that foot in mobility in most people, myself included. Good. 1 more, everyone. Good work. Okay, now let's switch to that left side. So we're going to go foot out. 4 more of those. Good. 2 more. And last one. Good work. And 5 foot ins. Good. A little stickier on this side. You can maybe see. 2 more. Good. Last one. Nice work, everyone. Feet are going to stay planted on the floor. And the next stretch that we're going to do is a stretch for our side body and for a muscle in our back as well. So you're going to bring your right arm up towards the ceiling and you're going to tilt to the left as much as you can, keeping this part of our body nice and open. We're not really collapsing in. That doesn't really change the stretch on our right side, so we want to stay nice and lengthened through that left side as we move into that right range of motion. Good. And let's breathe and open up through here. 1 more breath. And now to make it a little bit more challenging, you're going to think about rotating a little bit and staying in that stretch for 1 or 2 more breaths. Good. And we're going to really slowly unwind ourselves, bring our hand back down. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing on the left. So arm comes up, and we're going to tilt towards the right. Remember, don't collapse through. Keep yourself nice and strong and stay open through that right side. 1 more big breath. And now we're going to rotate a little bit. And we're going to do 2 breaths here. Ooh, feels like a good stretch to me. Good. And then slowly unwind everything. Bring that hand back down. The next thing that we're going to try moving around and stretching is our mid-back and our abdominals. So you're going to scooch into the middle of the chair. You don't want to be right at the edge, and you don't want your back to be right against it. And you're going to cross your arms across your chest. And we're focusing on trying to move from our middle of our back. So I'm going to be opening up through my arms in order to stretch the middle of my back, like so. I'm not just raising my arms. I'm really trying to arch through the middle of the back as I move. And then I'm going to come back. Good job. So this is going to stretch our mid-back, and then we're going to go a little further to stretch our abdomen. So let's do 3 for our thoracic spine, really thinking about moving from the middle of our back. Inhale on this extension. Good. This is particularly good for anybody who's sitting at a computer all day, schlumping over a keyboard. Last one. Good. And now we're going to try and really stretch our abdomen with it. So instead of trying to arch through our mid-back, we're just going to move everything back. And that should feel like a nice stretch through the front here. Good. See how that movement is a little different. I'm tilting my pelvis forward. I'm arching my back, trying to open up that abdomen. Good. And last one. Nice job, everyone. Okay, 2 more moves to go today. You guys are doing so good. Second last thing we're going to do is a seated glute stretch. Specifically, we're going to be targeting some of our deep rotators in our glute muscles by crossing one leg over the other. So if this is really hard for you to do and you can't get to that full opener, that's okay. Even here is still going to stretch your glute. So wherever the range of motion is for you, that's an awesome place to start. We're going to sit as far into that opener as we can, and we're just going to take our hand or our elbow and just do a simple little push down. And you should feel a stretch kind of in the lateral side of your bum. So kind of this part of your bum just on the other side. We're going to sit into that for 15 seconds. Really open up through there. And the more forward you get, the bigger the stretch. So again, if you don't have this range of motion accessible to you, sit as far back as you need to. Otherwise, sit as far forward as you can to get as good of a stretch as you can. Good. And now I'm going to switch sides. So you're going to unravel yourself, drop that foot down to the ground, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to cross this leg over, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to sit into that stretch, come forward, and I'm going to feel it right in through here. Good job, everyone. The more you let yourself just melt into it, the bigger the stretch is going to be. Let's do 3 more breaths on this right side. Last breath in, open that pelvic floor. Sink a little further into the stretch. And come out. Good job, everybody. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to release those deep rotator muscles that we were just stretching with a ball. If that range of motion from the previous exercise just wasn't accessible to you, or you didn't feel a really big stretch, the ball is going to really be helpful in that situation. So you're going to take the ball, and you're going to put it right into kind of the middle of the glute. There's no real right or wrong answer with this. As long as it feels mildly uncomfortable, you're in a great spot. And then you're going to cross that leg over, and you're going to sit into that ball and feel a nice release. You can move a little bit so that ball is kind of getting into different parts of the bum, or if it's uncomfortable enough in that one spot, I understand, and that is totally fine. So we're going to stay there, and then we're going to come off, and we're going to do a really quick release on the other side as well. So we're going to cross that leg, drop that ball, and sit into that discomfort. If you're sitting on a slippery chair like me, it might roll a little bit. A cushion could be helpful when you're doing this exercise. And we'll come back out of it. Sit into that ball for as long as you feel you're getting a nice big release. and then come and take it off, and you can put it to the side. Good job, everybody. That brings us to the end of day 1. We'll see you on day 2.